Do you believe you're free? Are you sure? What if I told you that your freedom might be the most sophisticated prison ever devised? That the abundance of choices you face every day, what we call modern freedom, is actually an invisible system of spiritual confusion, a subtle veil separating your consciousness from the true essence of being. The paradox of choice isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a vibrational trap, and few escape it. Today, we'll delve into the shadows of freedom and discover why so many awakened souls feel more lost than ever. It all starts with a whisper in the mind. What if I had chosen differently? This seemingly harmless thought is the root of a silent pain that grows with time. The illusion that somewhere in the past, a perfect decision was waiting to be made, and you ignored it. This fantasy paralyzes the present. The mind, conditioned by a hyper-stimulating system, chases after alternative versions of itself, as if there were infinite realities where you were happier, more spiritual, more complete. It's the myth of future perfection, fueled by an excess of options. Jacobo Grinberg, who investigated the mysteries of the mind with almost suicidal courage, said that reality is a projection of the neuronal field shaped by beliefs and experiences. When many possibilities lie before you, the field fragments. Perception loses cohesion. In vibrational terms, your frequency disperses like a beam of light passing through a cracked prism. The more you try to choose between 1,000 paths, the less energy you have to follow any of them fully, and that's how inner noise is born. That feeling of always being disconnected, even when everything seems to be going right. Nietzsche, the philosopher of eternal recurrence, warned us that true freedom only reveals itself when one accepts one's own existence as necessary. This means saying yes to what is, including limitations. But the modern world teaches us the opposite, that we can do anything, should do everything, and that happiness is always in another choice, another place, another vibration. It's like standing before 1,000 open doors without the courage to walk through any of them. Each one represents an identity, a life, an idealized version of your higher self. But ultimately, they all lead to the same emptiness if you're not present in the now. A silent energy grows in the absence of focus, spiritual entropy. It manifests as anxiety, existential fatigue, a sense of lost purpose. The paradox of choice doesn't just affect the rational mind, it destroys the bridge between the ego and the spirit. This is because the soul doesn't operate by choice, but by resonance. What vibrates with you is already yours. It doesn't need to be chosen, only recognized. But an excess of external stimuli dulls this sensitivity, making it almost impossible to hear what the soul truly desires. Imagine your consciousness is a mirror. With each new option, a shard breaks off. At first, the reflection is still whole. But over time, the mirror becomes a mosaic of contradictory desires, fears disguised as ambition, and wants that don't arise from essence, but from comparison. That's how freedom becomes a burden. And the more you try to alleviate this burden with new choices, the more unbearable it becomes. Have you ever felt this? Have you noticed how some decisions leave us more tired than fulfilled? This is where many people on the spiritual path get stuck. They awaken to a new reality, but instead of peace, they find confusion. Old certainties disappear, and the universe presents infinite possibilities. Meditation or ayahuasca, Grinberg or Osho, Kundalini or absolute silence. And in this jungle of possibilities, the ego disguises itself as a seeker and takes control again. The freedom that should be the portal to enlightenment becomes the road back to illusion. But there's a way out. It's not about choosing better. It's about feeling more deeply, silencing the external noise and realizing that the only true choice is the one that aligns your action with your most authentic vibration. This requires courage. It demands detachment from the promise of the best path and surrender to the present path. The soul doesn't shout, it whispers. And only in the silence of non-choice does the truth begin to emerge. This is the quantum leap, not the one that takes us to a new dimension of possibilities, but the one that anchors us completely in the now. We live in the age of hyper-stimulation. Everything cries out for your attention, your time, your energy, and, even more subtly, your vibration. The problem isn't just the number of choices we have. The problem is what those choices do to the structure of your being. On the energetic plane, each choice represents a direction, a flow, a branching of your field of possibilities. But when you find yourself surrounded by thousands of simultaneous directions, your field begins to vibrate at conflicting frequencies, generating noise, fatigue, and identity collapse. This is what we call ego saturation. The modern mind is constantly being asked to decide, compare, judge, and with every choice made, there's a subtle mourning for the possibilities abandoned. This creates an internal illusion of loss, as if with every decision you've left behind an entire universe of alternative lives, which, on a certain quantum level, may even be true. Grinberg spoke of this when studying the synaptic spaces of the mind and the potential of self-created reality. When you focus on one possibility, you collapse others. But if you're always hesitating between them all, you never collapse anything. You don't live, you just float. This is where the great spiritual paradox comes in. The path of awakening requires direction, focus, surrender. But current culture teaches you that freedom is keeping all doors open, and keeping all doors open is energetically the same as not entering any. Awakening, contrary to what's sold on social media, isn't a menu of transcendent experiences. It's a narrow path where you lose much more than you gain, where you silence more than you speak, where you accept that true power lies not in having everything, but in saying no to what doesn't resonate with your soul. The internet, algorithms, social comparisons, all of this pushes you to the surface. And the more you stay on the surface, the more your identity fragments. You begin to become several versions of yourself, one for each context, for each desire, for each unmade choice. And the worst part is that in this fragmentation, spiritual consciousness dissolves, inner unity breaks down. It's as if the temple of the soul is being slowly demolished from within, one wall at a time, until only the echo of unfulfilled promises remains. In this scenario, even the spiritual search becomes a product. Choose your master, your technique, your mantra, your avatar. Everything is presented as if it were a catalogue, and the more options you consume, the emptier you feel. Because the spirit doesn't manifest through consumption, it manifests through presence, through depth, through surrender. Spiritual energy only descends when there's space. And too many choices don't open space, they occupy it. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have a peace you can't achieve, even when doing everything right on your spiritual path? Maybe it's because they've learned to renounce, to silence, to choose less, to live the paradox of true freedom. Not being able to do everything, but being able to not need everything. This is the point where consciousness is freed from the labyrinth of choices, where the mind falls silent and the soul begins to sing. Now stop for a moment, breathe, feel. You've been carrying weights that aren't yours, vibrational responsibilities that don't belong to you. You've been demanding of yourself for not reaching a spiritual ideal that may not even have been generated by your soul, but by a mind saturated with comparisons. You can let go. You cannot choose. You can simply be. If this content is touching something within you, I want to invite you to go beyond listening and open yourself to the encounter. This channel isn't just a source of ideas, it's a sacred space of consciousness. So, if you haven't already subscribed, I invite you to do so now. Not as a mechanical gesture, but as a vibrational choice. If you feel that these words resonate with your journey, if something inside you is remembering who you are, subscribe. In this way, you keep this connection alive and active. And if at any point in this video you felt that this could help someone who is struggling in this labyrinth of choices, lost, confused, share it. It may be a small gesture in the physical world, but energetically, it can be the spark needed to ignite a weary soul. Leave in the comments what touched you most so far. Your perception can open paths for other consciousnesses that read it. There's a dark secret behind the choices we make in haste, fear, or anxiety. Each one leaves an energetic trace, a kind of scar on the subtle field of consciousness. This isn't a metaphor, it's vibration. When you decide something based on the fear of losing, the anguish of making a mistake, or the need to please, you imprint a frequency of scarcity in your field. And this frequency, like a discordant note in a divine symphony, distorts everything around it. Instead of expanding, your reality begins to contract. You close yourself off, even though you think you're liberating yourself. Jacobo Grinberg said that reality is a network of consciousness connected to the neuronal field. When we make choices under pressure, this field compresses. The fabric of reality becomes tense, entangled in obsessive thoughts and emotional repetitions. This generates what he called perception noise, a kind of mental and spiritual fog that prevents alignment with the natural flow of the universe. This is why many people feel trapped in cycles, repeating relationships, paths, and failures, even when they try to change externally. But there's something even deeper happening. Fear, when ignored, takes control of your decisions. It disguises itself as rationality, planning, even strategic spirituality. But underneath it all, it's the old energy of survival trying to command the soul's journey. The result? A silent distancing from the higher self. A disconnection that doesn't happen suddenly, but in small deviations. Each one justified, logical, but spiritually disastrous. And when you realize it, you're already too far from yourself. Nietzsche already said that the greatest danger of freedom is not excess, but the escape from responsibility for oneself. Choosing isn't just a mental act, it's an act of creation. And when you create from fear, you manifest vibrational realities that feed that same fear. It's a vicious cycle, and it repeats until you break the pattern. And how do you break it? With presence, with truth, with silence. The spiritual path requires you to listen to your intuition as if it were the only compass possible. And it doesn't shout. It doesn't argue, it simply vibrates. But to hear it, you need to silence the noises of the conditioned mind. You need to stop choosing based on doubt and start feeling based on truth. Not absolute truth, but your inner truth. The one that pulses when you're at peace, even without explanation. The one that vibrates when you say yes to something that seems crazy to logic, but resonates with the soul. Imagine this, there's a golden thread connecting your heart to the divine source. Every time you make a choice aligned with your essence, this thread shines, strengthens. But when you choose based on fear, comparison, pressure, this thread weakens. And gradually you begin to feel empty, lost, as if nothing makes sense anymore. What's missing isn't a new path. It's the reconnection with this thread. It's the return to the axis, to the original vibration of your consciousness. And maybe that's what's happening to you now. Maybe you've made choices that were right in logic, but wrong in vibration. Maybe you're trying to find peace by accumulating more techniques, more masters, more experiences. And what you really need is to empty yourself, to stop, to listen, to choose less, and to live more deeply what's already there. Because it's not the volume of choices that creates freedom, it's the depth of your presence in each of them. Now, if you've come this far, it's because something in you recognizes this truth. And I want to thank you for that, for walking with me through these dark and philosophical landscapes of consciousness, for not running away from discomfort, the difficult question, the silence between words. This channel is a space for souls who don't just want to consume spirituality, but to live it, feel it, be transformed by it. If this makes sense to you, if it resonates, I invite you with an open heart, subscribe to the Quantum Leap channel, not as someone who registers for something, but as someone who commits to a journey. And I take this moment to ask you something subtle but powerful. Leave in the comments the most difficult choice you've ever had to make, the one that changed your life, for better or for worse. By sharing, you not only liberate yourself, but also illuminate the path of someone who may be crossing the same crossroads now. This space is yours too, a sanctuary of consciousness among digital ruins. In the final segment, we will traverse the final shadows, how to recognize the exact moment to stop choosing and simply surrender to the flow. We will talk about the vibrational state of non-choosing, where higher consciousness takes the helm and life begins to be guided by synchronicities and not by forced decisions. A real, deep, spiritual turning point. We have now reached a threshold. So far we have spoken of the internal collapse caused by infinite choices, the vibrational destruction that fear imprints on the field, the disconnection from intuition, and the golden thread that connects your soul to the flow of the source. But there is an even deeper and more liberating secret hidden behind all this, the possibility of not choosing. It seems absurd at first glance. How to live without choosing? How to exist without deciding, but this question only makes sense to the conditioned mind. Higher consciousness, the one that vibrates beyond the ego, beyond reason, beyond haste, knows that there is a state where life chooses for you, where synchronicities speak louder than any planning, where the universe is not a catalogue of options, but a living dance that unfolds as you surrender. This state is called by many names: flow, surrender, alignment. But essentially, it is about suspending control, not only accepting the unknown, but welcoming it as a path. To stop trying to build the future and instead allow it to bloom like a flower from the present. And for this, you need to stop chasing doors and start observing which ones open on their own. Because what is yours, what vibrates with your essence, requires no effort to remain. It simply fits. Nietzsche said that the free man is the one who has the courage to say yes to life, even when it is cruel, chaotic, or incomprehensible. This yes is not passivity. It is conscious surrender. It is trusting that there is an intelligence behind reality, an intelligence that cannot be understood, but that can be felt. And when you enter this state, you no longer live trying to control. You live in a state of reverence. Jacobo Grinberg would call this a state of quantum convergence. A moment when decisions are no longer necessary because the unified field of consciousness is already operating in harmony with your purest vibration. It's when you become part of the design, when you stop trying to draw the world and accept being drawn by it. This is where true freedom begins, not when you can choose everything, but when you no longer need to choose anything. When your energy is so aligned, so silent, so present, that reality itself bends around you. The right people appear, opportunities arise, answers come without you having to ask, because you have become a channel, because you have let go of the I want and allowed the I am. In this state, the paradox dissolves. Freedom is not having infinite options. It is being completely present in the only option that vibrates with your soul. Spiritual connection is not knowing everything about chakras, techniques, masters, and traditions. It is living in constant humility before the mystery. Manifestation is not forcing the universe to give you what you want. It is tuning your vibration to what is already yours by vibrational right. Do you feel it now? That silent presence that observes you from within, that breathes with you? That is your soul. And it's not interested in 1,000 paths. It only wants one, the one that brings you back home. The one that reconnects you with the original spark. the one that reminds you that you were never lost, only distracted by too many choices. Now, to close this journey, I want you to do something simple, yet profound. Close your eyes for a moment, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, what is the one thing that, if I followed it now, would bring peace to my heart? It could be a gesture, a decision, a silence. Don't answer with your mind, feel. Allow the answer to come from deep within your chest, even if it doesn't make any sense. That's the vibrational choice, and it's worth more than 1,000 rational decisions. If you've come this far, you're no longer on the surface. You've touched deep layers of your existence. And for that, with respect and gratitude, I reiterate the invitation. Subscribe to the Quantum Leap channel, not as someone who follows another content creator, but as someone who accepts a calling to live with more truth, more presence, and more spiritual courage. This channel is more than videos. It's a space where consciousnesses awaken together. And if you want to help this network grow, share this video with someone who needs it. It can be your way of planting light in someone's life. And if you felt something strong, something that touched you, that moved you, write in the comments. Every word you write here is also part of the quantum leap we are building together. Reality may be a labyrinth, but the heart, when silenced, cleansed, and surrendered, is always the compass. May it lead you back home.